See, it was since 2008 that the people of Bangladesh have actually not voted in an election that is free and fair. I myself did cast my vote last time in 2008, which means that there is a whole generation that has not casted their vote in the last 16, 17 years. There are people who are 40 years old but haven't managed to give a vote in their lifetime. We had parliamentary elections, at least 3 parliamentary elections that were extremely manipulative. So in one election, the parliament was formed with 153 uncontested member of parliaments. In the next parliamentary election, ballots were stuffed on the previous night. In the last election that was held in 2024, it was an election called a dummy election. Means the party in power was largely boycotted by the other political parties, but then they themselves created dummy candidates to contest. So we had all sorts of elections in our life. Back in 1990, when we had another autocratic ruler, military ruler, I was a student then, and we came down to the street to get rid of that military ruler. And the street fight resulted in a system called caretaker government, which means that after the regular tenure of a government is over, that government will step down. All the parties together will form a caretaker government with non-partisan people, and that caretaker government will be there for few months, 3 months. The only task of that caretaker government will be to conduct the election. So under a neutral, non-partisan caretaker government, election would be held. So that way we had 1991 election, we had 1996 election, we had 2001 election, and we had 2008 election. But after that, the last regime amended the constitution, scrapped the provision of caretaker government, and made sure that elections are held under partisan government so that they can have uncontested parliament, they can have parliament that will be elected on the basis of forged votes, and they can have election that would be termed as dummy election.
Bangladesh's #1 still, BSRM.
The last 16 years we were under not an autocratic ruler but a fascist regime. All sorts of voting rights were denied. Even in professional bodies, the voting systems were tampered with. The national elections were all pre-designed in a way that the party in power would win. Now that we have, and even in all local government elections, now we have an interim government. This is a result of at least 850 lives being sacrificed, 450 people becoming blind, and at least 15,000 people getting injured. There was a revolution here in Bangladesh, and we call it July Revolution. And it was led by the students who started their process against a reservation system in the government service. But even that opposition could not be tolerated by the regime, and they used all forces to kill the movement. So that anti-reservation movement turned out to be a mass people's revolution that led to the fall of the autocratic regime. And this government, the interim government, was in the steering for 1.5 years. We tried to do 3 major things. One, to ensure justice for the victims of not only the July Revolution, But all those victims who were picked up, who were subjected to enforced disappearance, could never make a comeback to their families, who were brutally tortured. So it was, first call was for justice, the another call was for reform, that we don't really want to go back to a system where one regime can dictate everything. If we really want to transition towards democracy, we have to bring in certain changes in the constitution, in the administration, in the legal arena. So our second agenda was reform, and the third agenda was to hand over our responsibility to an elected government that will be elected through a free, fair and transparent election. And it is that transparency that has brought you all in to this country, where, as I started and said, that election is taken as a festival here in Bangladesh.